You are not an influencer, so why are you planning your content like one? I'm going to assume that because you're watching this video, you're interested in using content as a strategy to grow your business. But all too often, business owners find themselves influenced into doing content the influencer way, only to end up frustrated, working harder than they have to, and not having a whole lot to show for all of that effort. In this video, you're going to learn the 4 shifts that separate influencer content strategy from business owner content strategy, and how you can start getting better results from your content. Last week, I shared that I have just launched the 10th edition of the Content Empire Planner. I'll pop a link down below if you want to check it out. But there's one big thing that really differentiates this planner from other options. While most other content planners are more general in their content focus, others lean hard into helping influencers and capital C content creators plan out their content. Whereas this content planner is created specifically for business owners by a business owner. This last year, so much has changed with offers, with marketing, with sales, with content. It's shaken all of us. And as we've hunted for what are we going to do about it, a lot of us has found ourselves influenced by the influencers to start doing content that way. But here's the thing. The monetization models are completely different between a business and an influencer. While they're chasing large follower counts and brand deals, our metrics are geared more towards attracting and validating leads and converting those into sales. If you are trying to cosplay or do your content like an influencer, you're going to end up really frustrated because the metrics and results that you see from doing content that way aren't going to be the things that lead to sales. Or worse yet, if you have your foot in both sides, right, trying to do content like an influencer, or keeping in mind the business thing, you're not going to see results anywhere because you're spreading yourself too thin and trying to run two competing strategies at once. And that is where these shifts come in today. There are 4 big things I see, especially this year, keeping business owners stuck with content that's underperforming. And it all comes back and starts with planning your content. So let's start with number 1. One of the biggest differences between how influencers plan and use content versus business owners is that influencers influence their audience on what to care about, whereas business owners meet their customers where they're at and tailor what they talk about based on what their customers already care about. A big difference. What that means for your content planning is that it needs to start with having clear communication channels between you and your audience. So they're giving you cues regularly on what to talk about in your content. Here are some ways to set up feedback loops with your audience so you have plenty of customer approved content topics for planning. You could run an informal survey to your entire audience. I personally run one once a year, give some fun prizes for filling it out, and also have a lot of my clients run them prior to big launches so we can anchor all of the messaging around what their customers are already saying. You can also use in more informal or evergreen approaches like a social media question boxes or surveys, questions that people answer before joining a group, or even an email that goes out as soon as someone joins your list. I love having intake surveys for any webinar, event, or paid program kickoff. Not only does it help me tailor the content and answer questions, it also gives me some really good insights on why they signed up. And I almost always update my messaging based on what I discover. I would highly recommend setting up some kind of inspiration bank where you can store, categorize, and easily access these things when you need them. Another thing I do to get more cues on what my customers care about is a little debrief process after any coaching call, group call, or event. I ask myself, are there any stories, anonymous or not, that I can share as good lessons or takeaways? What topics came up? What questions were asked? Then I turn all of those things into content ideas for my long form content, my social posts, or my emails. You can even upload your transcripts into ChatGPT or Claude and have them help give you cues like what are the repeating patterns here. The big planning shift here is that your content topic should come from real conversations and market research, not just what's trending or what you feel like talking about. Where influencers can bounce around within their niche, business owners need to bring a focus to their content. And that focus is your paid offer, the 4-week minimum focus strategy. When it comes to planning your content, one of the most strategic things you can do is focus all of your content around a single offer for a minimum of 4 weeks. That means that every single piece of content you put out, whether it is long form content topics, podcast episodes, YouTube videos, written blogs, social media posts, posts, stories, emails all lead back to the topic of your paid offer. Just an important note here, even if it's not a direct pitch or sales email or call to action, more on that in the next shift, it still needs to be related thematically to your paid offer. The reason this works is it helps you build momentum towards your offer and get your audience thinking and starting to think about those topics. When you then switch into your direct sales invitations into sales mode at the end of 3 to 4 weeks, they don't feel like it's coming from left field. You've done your job of warming your audience up to the topic. I want to talk here about the 80 to 90% rule. One of the best outcomes for your content is that it gets people 80 to 90% of the way sold and does most of the selling for you. Your sales invitations are just what gets them across that finish line. Every content planning session should start with, what offer am I getting ready to promote next? One of the biggest, most strategic shifts that you can start to make to the way you plan your content is to start to visualize every single piece of content you create and the path that someone would take from it to your paid offer. So treat every single piece of your content like a mini sales funnel. Here's a real example. One of my clients structures every single piece of content to lead to a monthly workshop that is then turned evergreen. The workshop builds up and invites people to her paid offer. Every piece of content she creates has a role to play in selling her offer. The core principle here is that each piece of content should have a clear next step, and that step should be getting them closer and closer to your paid offer every single time. Think of it like a bullseye kind of visualization here. Think of it as a top-down view of the traditional sales funnel and visualize it as a bullseye instead. At the center of that bullseye is your paid offer. The next ring out is your free or micro paid offer. The next ring out is your long form content, and then the outer ring is your social media content. You can clearly visualize people moving from the outside towards the center, which is your offer, and see how each piece plays together to move them closer to that center. The shift to make here is to map out the pathway of every single piece of content back to your paid offer. So when you're planning, think about what is that journey that people are going to take and what is the potential pathway that they could move through as they get closer and closer to my offer. While an influencer responds to trends and even sets their own as an expertise-based business owner, whether you're a coach, a course creator, or service provider, the foundation of your content, your offers, and your work in the world is based on your frameworks and your processes. Your content has longevity, and because of that, you shouldn't always have something new to say. Your frameworks don't change from day to day. They have longevity, and because of that, by nature, a lot of your content is evergreen and stands the test of time. I want you to start seeing your content as a valuable business asset. And this is one of the biggest reasons why content is one of the most valuable assets that you can create, because not only can you reshare it if you have a hole in your editorial calendar or you get really busy and you need to pull something, or like the option is I repurpose something, I reshare something, or I go completely silent, you can pull from your content bank, right, in your editorial calendar, but it can also be repackaged and repurposed in so many different ways. So when you start treating your content like an asset, you have an opportunity to turn it into courses, turn it into new products, turn it into freebies, turn it into workshops, even in my case, a best-selling book, right? That all started from organizing my content in my content bank. So make sure you're treating your content like the asset it is. For me, this looks like building a content bank that is categorized where I can easily find everything I've ever created. The planning shift here is that when it comes to your planning, don't always rush to create something new. Remember that you can shop your content bank too, right? Where you can pull in a piece of your content that you haven't shared in a while. Maybe you need to update it or give it a kind of current year spin, but the bones will give you such a head start. And this is really your advantage over influencers. An influencer doesn't always have that luxury. Their posts and their content expire, right? They don't have a long shelf life. So use that to your advantage. This is where strategic content planning comes in. I'm not saying never create new content. Of course you need to create new content, but during busy seasons, where can you lean on your content bank? Then when you have more capacity, that is the time to restock your content bank with new assets. The shift here is to build content planning into your regular business rhythm. The shift here is to plan time to create create fresh assets when you have capacity and plan to leverage existing content assets during busier seasons or launches. This approach to planning ensures that you're never starting from scratch and that your editorial calendar can flex with your business needs rather than adding pressure during your most demanding times. Which of these shifts are you feeling like you need to make the most right now? Let me know in the comments. If you want a complete system for reviewing your year, planning your content and marketing goals, and your quarterly, monthly, and weekly system for creating a content plan you'll actually stick with as a business owner, check out the Content Empire Planner. Link is below.